there are people in overseas countries that are looking to replicate your products, manufacture them in mass, and completely flood the marketplaces to hurt you. Then you probably need to be more aggressive and set an annual legal budget. If you're in that middle category, you're making multiple millions a year.
So let's talk about all the ways we can fight back against these copycats. A lot of sellers don't know that they can copyright their photos or their product packaging.
So we started working with a lot of these mid-sized brands to give them the tools. Maybe it's not just the basic patent and trademark, maybe it's trade dress, actually protecting the overall shape of your product itself. I've worked with enough of all three types of brands to know that at the beginning, if you're a startup, you don't know what you don't know, so you end up learning the hard way.
Hey everybody, what's up? I am here with my friend Francesca Witzburg from Esca Legal, ESCA, just like the end of Francesca's name, Esca Legal. So I asked Francesca to come and talk to me today because her and I met and we had a conversation. And you guys know, I know a lot of great attorneys in this space, but wow, she does things a little differently. And I learned things from her that I have never heard before, which is really strange. So those of you who have, I mean, it's all of you, either you haven't been knocked off yet, or you're already dealing with it, you're playing whack-a-mole, you want to avoid it, you want to protect your stuff, you're wondering how do you protect your stuff. We're going to talk about all of that today. I'm so excited to have you here, Francesca. Why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about you and how you got into this gig?
Thanks so much, Amy, for having me. So I'm Francesca Witzburg. I am an intellectual property and brand protection attorney and specializing with emerging brands and e-commerce brands. I was in big law for many years and realized that with the new technology being social media, Amazon, continued e-com businesses, you guys are having problems, legal problems of Fortune 500 companies, but you may not necessarily be able to pay to have all of these, you may not necessarily be able to afford a Fortune 500 company legal budget. So I created the firm where we are taking top legal strategies that are the same that would be applied to Fortune 500 companies, but are tailoring it to meet the needs of these emerging smaller brands, anywhere between, a few million to 100 million a year. Your real businesses, and you are absolutely under attack. As soon as you become one of the top listed sellers, there are people in overseas countries that are looking to replicate your products, manufacture them in mass, and completely flood the marketplaces to hurt you. So we created Esca to help brands meet the needs and fight back and protect your brand.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And you guys have worked with some like multi-million-dollar brands. And more recently, you've been shifting your focus to some of the small to medium to even large size brands that are in e-commerce. Tell us about that and what made you kind of shift some of your focus that way.
Yeah, so my background being with the bigger firms, these are multi-million-dollar global counterfeiting operations. We were seeing mass knockoffs 5-10 years ago. All of a sudden, if you're listening to this and you've gotten knocked off in mass, you're like, what the heck? Why are these people coming from me? You are a target. These are real businesses. Even though they're illegal, they're knocking off your products. They're coming for brands that are in this mid-size realm where it really is between, the 5 to 100 million a year. So the brands that we work with are brands that believe in their company. They believe in their products. They've patented, they've trademarked, they've done the very basics, right? So you need to do your trademark, you need to get your patent and get your copyrights protected. But then what's after that? Because you are under attack. So we started working with a lot of these mid-sized brands to give them the tools. maybe it's not just the basic patent and trademark. Maybe it's trade dress, actually protecting the overall shape of your product itself, not just having a patent. So we work with brands to figure out what can we protect to basically build up their IP tool arsenals to go out and fight. And how do you fight hundreds, if not thousands, of knockoffs across the globe? We leverage technology. We build portals for our clients to scan the internet to get all the listings into a portal that they could see. We put them into different buckets. We say these listings, we're going to use Schedule A litigation. We're going to put as many as we can into one case. We're going to get a judge. We're going to get a temporary restraining order, and we're going to take it to Amazon, TikTok, freeze the funds, and try to negotiate or collect some of the money that we froze in those accounts. That's an amazing tool that really works for a lot of these sellers. And then the other bucket could be, you know what, for the rest, they're not good candidates for litigation. Let's just do takedowns. So takedowns, we talked about it, Amy, earlier. They are important, but if you're only relying on takedowns, it's a game of whack-a-mole, and it's a game that they want you to play. So we work with these companies to design a holistic strategy to protect their IP, fill in those gaps, and then go out and fight comprehensively.
Got it. So most sellers know what a takedown is. So we're going to talk about all the things that you said. Like, first of all, like patent and a trademark. Of course, all of us try to get those things if we can. And the problem is you're not protected. Like, I had a utility patent that took 3 years to get approved. In the meantime, I had all of these different, like, people were illegally selling my products, drop shipping them on other platforms. They were relisting and like stealing my images. And then I had just like a downright knockoff. Like, and I've had so many clients that have the same problem. So, we know that there's not enough. And so you mentioned trade dress, you mentioned Schedule A litigation. We're going to talk about each of those, but most sellers know what a takedown is. You talked about takedown.
Yeah.
But you also said like takedowns are just like whack-a-mole. So talk about Schedule A litigation, like dive a little deeper into that and kind of explain it to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Why is that such a game changer?
Think about it like when you go to the doctor. If you have really bad back pain, if you go to a druggist, they're going to give you pills. If you go to a surgeon, they're going to say, let's operate. So what's happening is these Amazon companies, you don't know where to go. So you go to the internet, you're Googling, you're finding some software that says that they can fix your problems. And they say, well, you could do takedowns and we'll get rid of them quickly. So you're playing a game that's a super quick fix, but all it's doing is just shutting down the site temporarily, and you're not addressing the root cause. So if you don't actually address the root cause to what's causing the knockoffs, then they're just going to proliferate, and you're going to watch those numbers go up while the takedown companies tell you, yay, we took down thousands this month. Like, if that number goes up, that is a bad thing. So what we do is we work with the brands to incorporate the technology in the software, but we don't lead with that strategy because we're a holistic law firm. Litigation is a tool. Takedowns are a tool. Cease and desist could be a tool. Recording your rights with customs, working with government agents, another great tool, and working with agents to find factories, another thing that we can do. So having this comprehensive approach, figuring out what is going to actually hit the problem the hardest, what works and what doesn't is key.
Got it. That makes sense. I like the idea of, the way you explained Schedule A litigation, where you're basically putting everybody into one bucket, and it's almost like if I'm saying this right, it's like almost like a class action lawsuit where you're
It's not a class action lawsuit, and Schedule A has been getting a bad rap because it's been abused by lawyers in the past. So it's a tool that allows for you to freeze accounts for sellers that you tell the judge that they're most likely going to get up and leave. Otherwise, if they have a U.S. presence, you can't really get an asset freeze, because if they're in the U.S., there's no real other evidence to show that they're just going to pick up and run. But when you have hundreds and hundreds of sellers from China or abroad, we can present a case to the judge saying that if we give them notice, if we tell them that we're suing them, they're just going to take the money and run. We need to do this under the cover of night. We need to do this what's called ex parte, where they're not being informed. They're just going to log into their account one day and see that their money has been frozen and their account has been shut down. And now they need to come and write to us and work out a settlement with us if they ever want to see their funds or get their account reactivated.
And how do you prevent people from abusing this? So, like, are you making sure that before you put this brand into this bucket of this kind of Schedule A litigation, that they do have a case, right? That they have actually protected this in some way where you have a case to bring to the judge and going, okay, they actually are infringing on this brand's IP. And here's to show all of the brands that are doing this, all the knockoffs. And if we shut them down just one, they're just gonna pick up and run, just start up another one, because that happens all the time, right? But how are you making sure that, what does a brand need to have in place to qualify for that, I guess?
Number one, you need strong intellectual property protection. So you need your patents, you need registered trademarks and registered copyrights. Also, trade dress may be a good one. So that's the first thing we do when we work with companies. We say, what gaps do you have? If you don't have trade dress, let's try to get trade dress. If you don't have copyrights, let's get copyrights. So we'll work with the company to get as many tools as possible. Once you have a lot of them, and so your assets are actually protected, your business is protected, then you can go out and enforce. So when you do those types of cases, you can't just throw 150 together. You cannot. These need to be real cases. They need to have a connection. They need to have some sort of connection to each other and a real claim that if we do give them notice, they're going to run away. So we've been getting good success in the Southern District of New York, where, obviously with Canal Street, there's a lot of counterfeiting is historical in New York. So those judges understand these cases, and we've been getting some good wins there.
Got it. So let's talk about all the ways we can fight back against these copycats. A lot of sellers don't know that they can copyright their photos or their product packaging. How does that actually protect them on platforms like Amazon or TikTok?
So if the way that most of these companies will go in is they hire a software vendor and they say, okay, these guys are going to fix it for me. I don't want to think about it. I want to work on creating. So they outsource it, and the takedowns are mostly focused on either the brand name or maybe copyrighted images, because as a lot of us have seen, they will take the exact product photos or even now influencer videos or affiliate videos that you may not own. So if we can get ahead of that and copyright those and actually get registrations for your product photos, your product videos, and even influencer videos, if they're amenable to giving you the copyright ownership, then you can enforce rights that way. And you could do that in the two ways. You could do them with takedowns, or you can do the Schedule A cases where you're actually suing them in court and freezing the funds and freezing the accounts with the copyright registrations.
Got it. And if I didn't copyright my images at the time, or I didn't know how to do that, and, let's say I've been copied, my listing images, my packaging, what does a smart defense strategy look like? How can sellers fight back effectively without spending a fortune? Because it sounds expensive,
Yeah.
like all these,
It will cost, though. The key is that it's going to cost you way more if you just continue to only do takedowns and you let these companies become real businesses, that if you then decide to get aggressive a year or two down the road, they're hiring top firms that will drag out a lawsuit and contest your underlying IP. They'll say, we're going to cancel your patent, we're going to cancel your trademark, to intimidate and push you and make you spend a lot of money until they bleed you dry. And now you either have to be in a position where you're like, do I just let them infringe because I don't have the money to enforce? So the more aggressive, I think the main takeaway is the more aggressive you are at the beginning, meaning using stronger legal tools like these litigations and Schedule A cases, the harder you're going to hit them, because the longer that you allow them to continue, they will become real businesses that could actually put you out of business, because these are not just a couple people in a basement somewhere. These are legitimate business units that have probably significant funds to pump out ads and beat your marketing, which is what happens to a lot of the companies. So I think that would be my main takeaway is be aggressive with your legal strategy. Don't just outsource this to a random company. Have a plan in place. Speak with a lawyer. Get as much IP protections, not just the one patent or the one trademark. Think, what can I do to beef up my copyright portfolio, and what can I do maybe for a trade dress to protect myself and anticipate my success, aka anticipate getting knocked off in mass. Because doing takedowns is like putting band-aids on a bullet wound. Eventually you're going to need to address the underlying problem, which is where we come in.
Yeah, and you also mentioned trade dress. It's something that not a lot of sellers are familiar with. What is
Sure.
trade dress and how can it give you long-term protection beyond a patent?
So trade dress is the Coca-Cola bottle shape. Trade dress is the shape of the Hermes bag. So even though the Hermes name, they may have removed the Hermes name and they're only copying the shape, that design is a trademark called trade dress. It's a subset of trademark that if you copy it, then it's trademark infringement. So this is really key because what's happening is most companies are just going right to these software companies, which again, it's an important piece and I'm not knocking on them. You need to have the technology, but it is a piece in a broader program. But by only doing those, what happens is you're telling all of your fakes and counterfeiters, hey, we're enforcing, so you better get good at hiding it. So now they're removing all the words. It's harder for you to take them down. And you're at a point where they're still copying the product shape or the product design. And what do you do next? What you do next is if you have a consumer product that has a unique design, if it's really popular, and that's why we work with a lot of brands, to get them trade dress if they are making multiple millions of dollars a year, have extreme consumer recognition, spending hundreds of thousands a month on ads. Like if you are that type of brand, then you absolutely should consider trade dress. And what I mean by trade dress is actually going ahead and filing a registration with the USPTO explaining, hey, when people look at this product, they think of me. They don't think of anyone. This isn't generic. It's a unique design that is a source indicator. It identifies me. So that is an amazing, an underutilized tool. And I think people don't know about it, number one, but also they're harder to get. So it's like with a patent, you invest a lot of time and money and it's expensive. Let's be real. But if you can get trade dress, it's actually stronger than a patent because patents, they expire at some point. Trade dress ultimately can go on and on and on for as long as you renew it and continue to use it.
Got it. And in our program, we teach that you should pick, like, if you're developing a new unique design of a product or a new unique product itself, that you should start out by kind of coming up with the minimum viable version of that to bring it to market, right? And some people might wonder, how much should I invest in protecting the minimum viable version of something? Like, obviously, we're not going to be ready for trade dress yet. I always tell people to have a conversation with a patent agent or a patent attorney in the design process because you don't know what you don't know. And there might be a claim in a patent or something that you could utilize in your product design that would make it stronger protection. So think about your protection from the very beginning. That's what I always say, have those conversations from the very beginning before you've even launched that product. But how do you, when you're consulting someone on this, how do you advise them to set a budget? Because, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we can do like patent trademarks, which patent trademarks are like the baseline. Like I always tell people, like
Yeah.
you should, if you can patent it, like have a conversation with a patent agent, patent attorney. What can you patent? What are your protections, right? If you can patent it, patent it. And then trademark is just bottom line. And then
Mhm.
copyrights are just like at launch time, like they're easy to file, like why not do it? But what is your advice for overall like mindset budget strategy? Because some people, they might not have protected anything from the beginning because they might have, I'll give an example. I launched a barbell clamp. So I do Olympic weightlifting and the little barbell clamps, right? There's a million of them on Amazon, but there wasn't any that had this TPR material, which is like a really thick, really nice material. So I found that at the Canton Fair. I was able to source it for $2 and I was able to sell it for $60.
Wow.
But I bring it out on Amazon, it starts selling well, and all of a sudden I get a takedown notice. There is a design patent on the shape that I have chosen. And not only does
Wow.
this brand have a design patent on this shape, but they have one on another shape. And so basically, luckily, Amazon lost 800 units and they had to pay me for them. So, like, that worked out in the most wonderful way. Thank you, Amazon. But but I decided to abandon it because then I would have had to go back to product development. I would have had to find a shape that worked. And I just like at that point, I just sourced it and I didn't think about protecting it because there's a million of them. And I didn't
Yeah.
think about doing a patent search at that time because there's a million of them in different shapes. So, yes, I lost money on that. Good thing I only ordered, 800, I think 1,000 units total. It was fine. Like it worked out in the long run. But how do you advise people on their budgets and their legal strategy from the beginning, depending on what their plan is?
It's unfortunate because most people either learn this, Amy, by going through it. So you rave about using lawyers because you've gone through it, you've gotten burned, and it could have been way worse. Or you hear someone that's gotten through it, or you don't see the value yet and it's coming. So unfortunately, most of the people who work with us, I will say not most, a majority come to us when they've done the basic trademark, patent, and they haven't done anything. They've not worked with lawyers. They don't have a lawyer on their team, and you're essentially waiting for a legal problem at that point. That's very reactive, and when you're reactive, it's like imagine not going to the dentist for years and just saying, I'm not going to go to the dentist until I really have to go to the dentist. By waiting, you could be costing it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to fix your teeth or even to try and save your teeth if you can save them at that point. So it's the same thing with law. Law is a part of business. If you're in business, you need to consider legal strategy because if you're not aware of it, it's going to come at you in the form of problems. So you can either be strategic about it and incorporate it and set an annual budget for it and be really smart, which is how we always encourage our clients to work, or you can just wait until it sneaks up on you and it could cost you millions of dollars on the back end. So for the beginning, there's three buckets of clients. There's three types of clients. So there's three types of businesses. Number one, the startup phase. So if you're in the startup phase, all you really need is the foundation. You need your trademark, you usually need a copyright or a patent or both, depending if you can get a patent. You can also consider trade secret, which if you have proprietary confidential information, it can protect what you've been building. And sometimes there's other design rights in the EU and the UK. So by working with a lawyer early at the startup phase, you'll be able to figure out, hey, what's the base things that I need? And you should be comfortable spending between 10 to 15 grand for your initial protection. It could be more or less depending, but that is a chunk of change that if you're going to launch this venture, you want it protected. You're going to be think about the money you're going to be spending on marketing it and putting it out there. So if you're putting it out there with no protection, it's going to get stolen and it's going to be really expensive. The middle market right now, the middle size business is these emerging brands that are scaling. So you've done $1 million in sales. Now you're scaling to 5 million and beyond. That's really the pain point, Amy, which is like kind of who we're talking to today. If you're scaling, that means you have a viable product. It's done well. It has IP. You've already done the patent, the trademark, and the things, but now you're a target. And now is when you're at a critical juncture in the business where you're going to say, am I going to continue to scale? But to continue to scale, I need to get these knockoffs off the market because they're destroying my brand. And if they continue to eat into my sales, I'm not going to scale. So At that point, you should absolutely either have like a fractional in-house counsel like we do, where you have someone on retainer. There, you can call them at any time. You can email them with questions, but they're helping you again proactively figure out what trademarks do I now need at this stage of business? What copyrights do I need? Can I do trade dress? Because you've hit in that point where you're making a lot of money and you have consumer recognition. And what contracts do I have? So contracts is another piece that gets missed. People will try to use ChatGPT, and that can only get you so far until you have a situation where it's like, wow, I really screwed myself. So that's the point where if you are making a few million a year or more, having a lawyer as a part of your business team is going to save you significant time and money. And then to get to that third level, becoming enterprise level, having legal isn't, there's not one company that you know of that doesn't have good lawyers. They're spending multiple millions a year on legal because at that point everyone understands the importance of using legal strategies to protect their business.
Yeah, I love it.
So in the middle, I didn't answer your question for the middle market. You should work with a lawyer to set the budget that fits your proper needs. Because it depends on your goals. It depends on your objectives. Do you want to continue to scale? Then you probably need to be more aggressive and set an annual legal budget. If you're in that middle category, you're making multiple millions a year, you will not be able to get to that next level unless you're really considering putting legal into your budget. Because if not, things will pop up that are going to distract you and take away your time and energy. Instead of focusing on growth, you're going to be focused on, I'm getting attacked today. I have to fight these people. And it could be too late in some cases if you didn't do the proper protections in the startup phase from the beginning.
Yeah, so I love that advice. I mean, basically, if people are wondering what they should do when they're setting up their business, they should be sitting down with an attorney and asking the questions. What should my budget be? What do you recommend? What are my protection options? So that is amazing. I love that.
Do you want me to tell you, Amy, like what we created for this?
Yes.
So the way we always start is we do an audit. It's the first thing that we do. We offer select clients a free audit if they are in that emerging scaling
What did you
piece.
say? A free audit?
A free audit. So we'll actually look what trademarks do you have, what IP do you have, what's protected, what's not protected, where are some major gaps in protection, and then we'll discuss how to enforce. We'll look at to see if you have knockoff issues. If you do, we'll give some strategies, and we put together a real plan. This is a real plan. There's cost estimates. We've done this enough where we know what's reasonable based on how aggressive the brand wants to be or how digital and front facing they are. And the reality is if you're an e-commerce brand, you're very up in the faces of these infringers that are going to try and knock you off. So we do the audit and then we help clients build out a playbook. So we create a playbook for them that every quarter we continue to meet and we may build upon that. It could be that this quarter there's nothing needs to be done. It's in maintenance mode, but we're able to catch issues before they arise. Doing it that way is a fraction of the cost instead of handling legal problems when they arise.
I love it. And so if you guys would like to take advantage of that free audit, if you're like, I learned some new things today. I don't even know if I'm doing things right, but I certainly need somebody to take a look at my brand and tell me. You guys can go to amazingathome.com/resources. And that is our trusted resource provider page. So amazingathome.com/resources. You click on legal. Esca is the very first box on the left. So just click there and right through. There'll be a contact button where you can reach out and request that free legal review, free legal audit. Let them know, hey, I saw you, I heard about you from Amazing at Home, and I, would really like your help with this. Okay, so before we wrap it up today, I have one final question.
Yes.
For each of these folks that are maybe already dealing with knockoffs, right? They're deep in it. They've been fighting it. They're in the cycle. What do you think should be their very first step right now? Like if they're like, man, I don't know, like I've already spent so much time, so much money in this, like what should they do first right now?
You need to make a mental decision on whether or not you want to protect your IP and you want to grow and scale. Because if that's the case, then getting strong legal protections and working more strategically instead of reactively is the difference between the companies that make a few million a year and are dealing with knockoffs versus the companies that are making 10, 20, 50 million a year and protecting their brands. So that's number one. And it's the piece that I can't answer for you, but think, am I going to anticipate my success and do I value my brand? And if I do, then the answer is you're at a critical juncture to invest in your IP now and also set a plan to go out and fight. That's number one. Number two, actually do the work, figure out what's proprietary, make it really clear and include it in your marketing. Say, we're the original X. Look out for our patented design. Look out for our trade dress. And create a consumer awareness about your brand and why your product is superior to all the knockoffs. And number three, find people you like. Working with lawyers, there's so many different kinds. You should find someone that you feel understands your business, knows your business, meets you where you are, and will help anticipate your success by trying to catch issues before they arise.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. And then one final question. Well, two. I have two. The first one is, how do people follow you? How do they follow you on LinkedIn? What should they do?
I have on Instagram, I'm at the Trademark Attorney. I have a whole content platform to educate and empower entrepreneurs and emerging brands and e-com brands to understand what you're up against and how to fight back. It's not going to cost you millions of dollars if you do things early and proactively. And I'm also on LinkedIn at Francesca Witzburg. You'll see me on TikTok and on YouTube as well. I'm kind of all over, but LinkedIn and Instagram are the main hubs.
I love it. I didn't know about that. I'm going to go follow at the Trademark Attorney right now.
Yay!
I'm so excited. I can always I feel like there's never, the main takeaway that I had from this, I'm working on a software project right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I was thinking about the trademark and there's some issues with the trademark. So I was like, okay, I need to work on that, whatever. But my big aha moment from today was dude, why am I not sitting down with an attorney and just setting a budget, talking about my goals? Where are we going with this? And what kind of protection do we need? And I'm sure it's beyond the stupid trademark thing that I'm thinking of. And so I don't know why that didn't occur to me, but you made it totally clear today. And that was key takeaway. So speaking of key takeaways, I promise this is my last question. What is your number one piece of advice for business owners out there, whether they're e-com, whether they're lawyers, it doesn't matter. All of us are on a journey. And, maybe there's one thing that, you learned on your journey in building your company that has been really helpful. But what is your one piece of advice for everybody out there building businesses?
I've worked with enough of all three types of brands to know that at the beginning, if you're a startup, you don't know what you don't know, so you end up learning the hard way. And then if you get to the point where you are making multiple millions and trying to scale, that's when you get really under pressure and you make a decision. Are we going to burn the boats and go all in and bring in before you even bring in an in-house lawyer, just, hey, can we get somebody on our team that's advising us? Not just, oh yeah, I work with this patent guy, he's great, but I never hear from him. No, do I have someone who's really a part of my business team who's advising me strategically, catching things that I don't know? And then the third is when you get to that level where you built a team, having strong lawyers and business partners to help advise you, to protect you and keep you safe are worth everything. And it's not even a question at that point. When we work with the enterprise level, they already have an in-house lawyer or a team of lawyers. So if you are in that emerging or startup category, I think my last takeaway is lean into law. There's so much information. My page alone and all of the information on YouTube and the internet and using ChatGPT should help guide and empower you on how to use legal strategies to protect your business. But actually making that step and getting someone on your team to actually protect you will save you millions of dollars. So I'd rather see you all reach out to me early than coming in when we have mass problems.
Yeah, and probably after they've already spent so much in like little whack-a-mole. Like I always tell
Yeah,
people when they're doing trademarks, for example, like pay for an attorney who's going to do the whole thing up front. Don't take the shortcut, file it yourself, and then all of a sudden you've got all these office actions. Now you're paying an attorney, $800 to $1,200 an hour to take care of that. When if you had just hired for probably the $1,200 for the very first lawyer package, like they would have taken care of everything from the start because they don't want to answer office actions. So they're going to make sure everything's good. So I always tell people like build it in your business from the start. Like don't
yeah,
make the mistake of, I can do it myself. I can just add, you can ask ChatGPT and you should. You should do some of your research on your own before you hire a
totally.
consultant or an attorney. You absolutely should. But after that, then go confirm it. Like
Yeah, and
I
I love,
confirmed
Amy,
this.
that you speak the lingo and you understand because like you said, you've been burned before. Unfortunately, it comes down to pain. So we have a lot of clients that come in and they come in through someone like you saying, my partner on my team or my coach told me I have to get a lawyer. So why do I need a lawyer? And at that point, it's like why I said at the beginning, you need to make the decision yourself. I can't make that for you because when a person comes to me at that point, they don't have enough pain. So what ends up happening is they'll reach out 6, 12 months later where now they're like, okay, you were right. What can we do? We're a year behind. After a year, think about if your knockoffs are making millions a month, how much better funded and smarter they are. So now, not only did we wait a year, we behind. They have multiple millions of dollars. They're hiring the best lawyers. And now we have to fight. So thank you for sharing that information and encouraging people and sharing your war stories. I feel like war stories help paint a picture to hopefully get people to understand that this is real. This is an important part of business. It's been gate kept. It's been gate kept for so long. Not many lawyers were on YouTube talking about what business owners need to know, but now they're here and we are happy to share as much information as possible so that you can become that scaling and, multi-million dollar brand that you desire to be.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Francesca, for being here today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And again, if you'd like to reach out to Francesca or the team at Esca Legal, you can just go over to amazingathome.com/resources and click underneath legal, the very first box. That's big black box that says Esca. So, and you guys can reach out to them for your free legal audit. Tell them we sent you so they know where you're coming from. And follow up. Tell us how everything's going. Tell us your issues. Ask us your questions, those kind of things. We love those as well. We just want to help. We're always that way together. I know Francesca's like that as well. So, and follow Francesca online, LinkedIn, and Instagram at The Trademark Attorney. I love it. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Francesca.
Bye. Thanks, Amy.